I'd purchased the imp-powered coffee bean machine from Cut-Me-Own-Throat Dibbler, the man whose name was the byword for quality. With CMOT Dibbler, you could say bye to quality. I'll say this for the ICBM. It made coffee strong enough to blow your head off. On the downside, the imp tended to use most of the beans to fuel its own addiction. Some days the poor thing was so jittery the coffee machine would vibrate off the shelf. Sapient pearwood comes from a plant so magical that it is totally impervious to all forms of magic, and so valuable that thieves have cut each other's throats to own it. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford a desk made out of it, so I made do with pine. It's a nice desk, though. A lot of strange things had happened to me since becoming a private investigator. But the weirdest was the irrepressible sensation that the most important thing for me to own as a PI was a door with my name painted on the glass. Some mysteries are best left unsolved, I guess. A lot of strange things had happened. The Milka was the tramp schooner that Mundy had come in on, and I knew it was berthed at the wharf. Carlotta had hired me to track down Mundy. At the beginning, that was pretty much all I knew about him. The wharf was on the upmarket side of the river, in the city of Ankh. The Moorpork docks on the other side of the river were not a place wise travelers disembarked at. But then again, wise travelers tried to avoid Ankh-Morpork altogether. But if you traveled a lot, it was hard to miss, like malaria. The sailor was busy loading the ship, and I decided not to disturb him. Something told me I wasn't going to... The Milka was a tramp schooner, one of the many ramshackle ships that plied their trade around the Circle Sea. From the looks of it, it should have sunk years ago. Even the rats thought twice before boarding it. The first mate didn't look particularly willing to let people aboard. From the even...
Shiver me timbers! Hoist the main brace!
Let's start again. Are you the first mate?
Aye, that I be.
You're not going to get any money off me, so you can drop the fake accent.
Sorry, you know how it is. Some people are stupid enough to fall for that sort of thing. What can I do for you?
Was there a man named Mundy on the last voyage?
It's funny you should ask that. You're the second person today to have an interest in Mundy.
Who was the first?
A dwarf. He didn't give his name. I don't think he was from round here, though.
What about Mundy? What was he like?
I don't pry into the passenger's business, but for a man who came on board pretty happy, he seemed pretty unsettled when he left. Not that I blame him. Something was definitely amiss on this last voyage.
Do you know where he is now?
Monday? No. Like I said, I don't pry in the passengers' business.
Unless you actually look through their luggage after they've been washed over the side.
Hey, what are you inferring?
I'm not inferring anything. I'm implying that you might have had a look at their luggage at one point.
If I had, I certainly wouldn't admit it to you.
Which either means you didn't look, or you didn't find anything of interest.
You better watch your steps, son. It's not good to make accusations like that.
Don't worry. Anything we discuss is strictly between you, me, and anyone else I tell. Since that was who I'd learned about that from in the first place, I didn't feel I had... When do you sail?
As soon as we've got her loaded.
How much is passage?
Where are you looking to go?
I don't know. Sort, perhaps.
We've just come from there. It'll be a long time before we get back there again.
Did you bring any passengers?
Sure. We always try to take a couple of passengers. They pay their way, and if there's a big storm, they are very useful as to sacrifice to the angry sea gods. Of course, we tell people they were washed over the side.
What were the passengers on the last voyage like?
There were 3 of them. One of them seemed all right, but the other 2, I don't know about them. There was something strange about them.
Do you sacrifice passengers often?
No. The captain doesn't like it. He says it's bad for business. I said that we were advertising ourselves as offering an exciting tour of the Circle C. But he pointed out that most people would expect the tour to be above the water. If I'd had my way, we'd have thrown some people off the last voyage.
Bad omens?
The whole crew had a bad feeling of dread from the moment we set off.
Looking at the state of the ship, that doesn't come as a surprise. The first mate had said that a dwarf had been asking about Monday before I had. That raised my suspicions that there was more going on than Carlotta was telling me. The first mate hadn't been able to tell me much about the other passengers on the Milka, but he did know that there was something distinctly foreign about one of them. What do you know about a woman named Carlotta?
Doesn't ring any bells, I'm afraid.
The first mate hadn't been able to tell me much about the other passengers on the Milka, but he did know that there was something distinctly foreign about one of them. This is the Milka, isn't it?
That's what it says on the prow.
It's impossible to read anything written on that hull.
Just because you can't read it doesn't mean it isn't there. Reality is subjective, after all.
Don't get all existential with me.
It was more ontological than existential.
That's a really bad habit you've got there.
What? Oh, sorry. I picked up a bad case of philosophy in Ephoebe a couple of years ago, and I haven't been able to get rid of it since. Just can't seem to shake it off. Normal as anything one minute. Next moment, I'm wondering if anything can truly be said to exist. A bit of a drawback when you're supposed to be navigating.
Okay, assuming the existence of an objective shared universe, is this the Milka?
Yes.
Can I have a look on board?
No.
That better not be some kind of philosophical objection.
No one gets on board without Captain Jenkins' permission.
Where is the captain?
I don't know. But you could try the Cafe Ankh. He usually goes there when he's in Ankh-Morpork. If it exists, of course.
Well, safe voyage, if that's possible. recall if the whiskey knocked you flat, or if everything was a blur when you met her. All that you remember are the tunes of a vampire, a melancholy tune about impending doom. I'll fetch your tankard, fill it to the brim, a cask of stale, broken drum ale, wondering how long till you meet again on the bank of the Ang. Too much to drink, you could barely even think. Too much bear hunger when you met her. I thought I told you never to play that song again. Oh, sorry, Mr. Luton. It's just I wasn't expecting you to call by tonight, and... You weren't expecting me? It's only been 8 years, Samael. I guess my memory ain't what it used to be. I don't know why Samael put up with my temper. He could have broken every bone in my body if he'd wanted to, but that's what made him special, I guess. That he'd take almost any kind of abuse from the clientele, and he'd still be there at the piano, playing better than anyone else in Ankh-Morpork. The pianist, Samael, was one of Café Ankh's greatest assets. Not only was he a first-rate musician, but there was something about him that made you think it'd be a bad idea to start any trouble. I decided not to disturb my old friend Nobby from the Watch. I hadn't spoken to him in ages. The captain of the Milka, Captain Jenkins, didn't seem to be a very happy man. Are you Captain Jenkins?
That depends on who's asking.
Don't play games. I'm just after a few answers.
That song really put you in a bad mood, didn't it?
If you're trying to get me angry, it's working.
No need to get upset. You need to drink more and think less.
If I drank any more than I do now, I'd never think again.
That's the ticket.
So, you're the captain of the Milka.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately?
Ordinarily, I'd be happy being a captain of a fine ship like the Milka, but after this last voyage, I'm thinking of taking up farming.
Tough journey?
I don't want to talk about it.
What was so bad about the last voyage?
I told you I don't want to talk about it.
Sometimes it helps to talk about these things.
Why would I want to talk about it?
All right, let's put that another way. I want to talk about it, and the sooner I finish talking to you, the sooner you can get back to drinking.
By that logic, my best bet would be to just ignore you and carry on drinking.
I was never much good at logic. I did home economics at school. Carlotta had hired me at the beginning. That was pretty much...
What's it to you?
I was hoping to find him.
Owes you money, does he?
No, he's an old friend.
Him? You must think I'm as drunk as I look.
Aren't you?
Well, okay, so maybe I am. What did you want to know?
Where is he now?
I've no idea. We picked him up in Sort a couple of weeks ago and we brought him here. That's about all I want to know about him.
Did he say what he was coming to Ankh-Morpork for?
I think he said he was meeting someone.
Who?
I can barely remember my own name, let alone something I overheard through a doorway last week.
The Milka looks like a good ship.
You know nothing about ships, do you? She looks like exactly what she is. A rundown tramp schooner with no future.
Any chance I could look around her anyway?
All I want to do is get the cargo loaded and get out of this god's-forsaken city. I don't need people snooping around on board.
On your last voyage, there were 3 passengers, right? Mundy and 2 others.
You tell me. You seem to know more about my ship than I do.
I just want to know what you can remember about them.
I remember that we picked them up in Ecclepon, and I know they had a lot of cargo. Oh, and one was a woman, and one was a man, I think.
You think he was a man?
There was something particularly foreign about him. I'm not sure what.
Where's Ecclepon?
Up near the hub. God's forsaken place. All there is to do there is drink and eat fish sandwiches with no tops on.
Sounds like a long way from the Circle C.
We got lost, all right. It's easy to mix up port and starboard when you've drunk too much port.
Are they still on board?
Nope. We dropped them in Ankh-Morpork. And before you ask, I have no idea what they were doing here. That's not my business.
I was beginning to realize that Captain Jenkins only had 2 questions to ask his passengers. Where are you going, and how much money have you got? Has there been a dwarf around asking questions?
I wouldn't know anything about that.
What do you know about a woman named Carlotta?
There's no one I know.
I was hoping you'd let me have a look around on the Milka.
I was hoping that I was going to make enough money to be able to buy myself a harem of exotic dancers called Chantel. But it looks like we're both going to be disappointed.
I'll see you around, Captain.